Good morning. Welcome to the Celtic Way Morning Briefing Live. I'm Tony Haggerty, Haggerty 10, as you can see, and I'm joined once again by Sean Martin at Sean Martin TCW on the Twitter handle, as you can see. Morning, Sean. How you doing?
Not bad, Tony. Yourself? Feeling better?
I'm feeling better. I'm getting there. I think my isolation ends on the 31st of December at midnight. So yeah, yes, there you go. It's feeling good coming to the end of it all. But yeah, it's been a long. I feel like I've been in the Big Brother house, you know that way. So day 8 of isolation. Yeah, Tony's feeling all right. Cool. Well, let's get to it, Sean. In all matters Celtic.
Yep.
Some positive news, very positive news on a couple of fronts. Firstly, it looks like Daizen Maeda will become a Celtic player. Various outlets claiming that Celtic have agreed a deal with an option to buy deal of €2 million, kind of 6-month loan with an option to buy deal, kind of similar to the Jota deal. But yeah, seems that he will be joining his compatriot Kyogo in the Celtic lineup.
Looks like it. It's an exciting one, isn't it? I mean, he's a J League joint top scorer. Last time Celtic signed the J League top scorer, worked out pretty well so far. Anyway, he's also he plays for Yokohama F Marinos, so he knows Ange. That's who Ange coached before he came to Celtic. So he knows what it's like, what the demands are working under Ange. It's interesting that it's, as you said there, reportedly a loan to buy, because that's how he got started under Ange Postecoglou at Yokohama. And to be honest, when I looked at him, his loan season wasn't particularly great statistically in terms of output, but he obviously showed enough and showed Ange enough to think that he would improve. And they did keep him permanently, and he thrived under Ange. And it must be said, he's thrived since Ange left as well. He's just been playing really, really well this season.
You look at his highlights reel, Sean, and yourself and myself and many other Celtic supporters, you can't help but get excited at the prospect of him pulling on a Celtic jersey and, you know, and being with Kyogo and having a friend there and stuff like that, you know. So it can augur well for Celtic moving forward.
Aye, I mean, fundamentally, you know what I've been like this season about the squad depth and stuff. It gives you more options, and he can. I mean, he's played off the left mostly, but he's right-footed, and he's also played through the middle, so he can cover along the front line. There's a school of thought that he could actually, in the main, be a like-for-like replacement for Kyogo when he needs a rest or is injured, which is encouraging because you say you've watched the videos, and I think most people that are tuning in will probably have watched the videos. He's direct and he's fast and he's quick of speed of movement, of thought as much as movement as well, which is what you like about Kyogo. So it seems that his skill set suits maybe playing that role, but he can also play off the left, as I say. And we've also already saw that, something we were talking about way back in September, that when you've moved Leila Abada into the middle, when Kyogo's been out, it's almost a Kyogo light type situation, but you tend to get better results with him there than you did moving a midfielder up as a false nine. Even though it's a small sample size, I still think the difference was there for all to see.
Yeah, he scores goals as well, Sean. You can't get enough goal scorers in your football team, in my opinion.
He does, aye, and as much as I say he played off the left mostly there, when I dug a wee bit deeper, when he's actually played through the middle, like just through the middle, which hasn't always been for full games and stuff, so I looked at the minutes that he's actually played rather than just the amount of games, because sometimes that's not a fair reflection if you're only playing 6 minutes or something at the end of the game up front. So in minutes terms, he's played the equivalent of just under 12 full matches, but he scored 14 goals when he's played as a striker in those minutes. So it really does bode well that he can cover across that front line.
Which is what I was kind of alluding to. So if you've got stats like that, then I think if you can score goals in the J League, you can certainly score them in the Scottish Premiership, as Kyogo has already proved.
True. And I'm going to put up a comment, not to deflate us any, but Frank's comment is actually fair enough here. We were told Georgios Giakoumakis was a goal scorer. Apart from that missed penalty, we've not really seen him. I agree, but we've not really seen him, but I still think it's unfair to judge him too harshly because of that. He said his injury problems, obviously. The penalty, I mean, I dug into it. I'm disappointed with him going in the bottom left there, knowing that he doesn't score there. But in general, so far, I agree with Frank. I think you were wanting more. You are wanting more from Giakoumakis. So far, it's been most effective as a tool to see out a game. And that you want more than that from a guy who was Eredivisie top scorer. So I take your point, Frank, and it is worthy of consideration, but I'm still getting excited.
Well, Alan Robertson says, hopefully that's a green light for Maeda. Indeed. And Rab McCune says, sorry, last time, we're absolutely buzzing for Maeda signing, and Big Jules back after the break will be like another new signing. Now, that's the other point. Sean, other piece of good news emanating from Celtic Park yesterday, the return of Christopher Jullien. It's exactly a calendar year since he's been out. 30th of December last year, he injured his knee against the post against Dundee United, but Ange was very confident that he will be back in the new year, which is great news for Celtic supporters.
It is, and it just adds to that kind of depth in the middle of the defence, although I would argue that, well, first of all, it's been a long time coming. You say it's a full calendar year, that's long for any injury, and there's been kind of veiled references to various setbacks in that recovery. But I'd like to think, given that that is the length of time he's been out, and the majority of that will have been rehab, that it's been handled almost conservatively and down to a teaming, and it gives him the best chance of getting back to a certain level. The question obviously is, how long will it take and what level will that be that he gets back to? But that said, and this is the point I was about to make about the centre of defence, I think it will still be a gradual return as long as Carter Vickers, Starfelt and Welsh are available, because I don't see the need to rush him back in at the starting 11 otherwise.
Yep. Just on Maeda, Alan Robertson says, according to reports, Maeda will join a 6-month loan and option to buy for 1.7 million. I think that's the kind of long and short of it. And Rab McCune comes in and says, good times are coming. Ange's my leader. Right back to work. We'll work yesterday. Have a happy hug, money, everyone. And Rab also says, and we thank you for this, Rab. And I finally signed up to the Celtic way, and the articles are excellent and great work. Come on, the hoops. That's
yes,
Rab. That's what we like to hear. That's what we like to hear. Hit that subscribe button if you're watching YouTube. You know the drill. And Alan Robertson goes back in and says, Tony, about 80% fitness. Yep. I think I would pass a fitness test, possibly a stretch. But I'm not sure.
Was your League Cup final, would you play?
I'd certainly pass a fatness test. I know that, yeah, but I'd be dying to play in the Cup final. There you go. CFC 97 says, this lad looks a proper goal scorer, quick and direct, which is what you were talking about, Sean. Good to see you, Brian Roberts.
The only thing I would say about that is that statistically, anyway, he's not much of a creator. So if you're going to play him off the left, then it's really, you're looking for him to score goals, whether he's on the left or not, that kind of thing. But listen, if he's hitting the back of the net, then I suppose you're not particularly looking at the assists.
Yeah. And Daniel Hughes comes in, Maeda be a great addition to this maturing Celtic team. And I think that's what a lot of people seem to be thinking that Sean, now he might have options, he might have, everything at his disposal and all his cards to play. So just as I said in the strap line, that he's catching a break now with Jullien coming back and additions coming in. So we'll see how it goes. Another name linked, Sean, in passing was Hans Wohl from Borussia Mönchengladbach. I think everybody had a look at the highlights reel there as well and getting excited by that. But I think Real Betis, Trabzonspor and a few other clubs are in from. So whilst it's kind of bubbling away, maybe not one that Celtic will conclude, because they're saying maybe £4.5 million worth, so we'll see. But he looks a player.
He does look a player. He still is a player, but he stalled a bit, I think, when he went to Gladbach. I think we'll all remember Marco Rose. He joined him from RB Salzburg. It was initially on loan, another guy who went on loan and then joined permanently. But I think in Austria, he was very impressive from what I can see, but it's unclear. He's kind of stalled at Gladbach, and it's unclear how much they would want from you. We're saying £4.5 million there, but if it's another loan move, that kind of thing. I mean, ultimately, when he went to Gladbach, it was about, I think, €1.5 million for the loan spell, and then another 9 or so when it got made permanent. So if it's anywhere near that kind of money that they're looking to recoup, I can't really see Celtic parting with anything near that. Well, the other kind of loanees that they need to take care of, and then the other potential incomings, can you?
No, I can't.
No.
Daniel Hughes comes back in and says, fingers crossed we've got back the Jullien of old. And Alan Alison comes back in and says, hopefully Big Jullien will be back for the Scottish Cup game. It'll just be interesting to see, as you say, I think it'll be a phased return as well, but just want to see how Jullien reacts and what, in his first couple of games back, because it will be, he has been out for so long, but you just want to see him going to a tackle and not flinch and have no worries about that, Sean.
Well, that's the thing, and that's the kind of thing that they usually try and sort in training. I know you can't really imitate match experience in training, but you can certainly make sure you can take a tackle in training, that kind of thing.
Well, if the training is as intense as Ange says it is, then I'm sure he will. Someone will be ordered to put in a ferocious tackle on him to see how he copes. But yeah, I mean, it's exciting times, and Cardiff Carroll comes in and says we'll come back stronger after a winter break and push on for the title. I think that's what a lot of Celtic supporters are hoping. The way that the rest of the season plays out, Sean, they've been kind of limping towards January, haven't they? With, as we keep banging on about the lack of quality and strength and depth in the squad. Now there's that chance, and most Celtic supporters hope that, and I wrote a piece on it yesterday, that if the board back this guy, give him what he wants, then they can have a tilt at the title.
Definitely. We've been saying that for months now, and I've used the phrase when I analysed the first transfer window with the 12 new arrivals, and the fundamental question was, has Ange been backed? And as I've said numerous times on here, he was backed with numbers, but I wouldn't necessarily say that he was backed with the requisite quality for the squad as a whole. So I said back then, and I still think now, that the January window needs to be phase 2. It's not a whole different thing. It's phase 2 joining on from the summer window, and it will be the same in next summer. That will be phase 3, because this rebuild isn't just a 1 window or even a 2 window job. But the fact that you've got a manager there that it clearly gets performances out of players that not necessarily expect, and has revived a couple of players to levels that you weren't necessarily expecting, it bodes well that he's actually a wee bit ahead of schedule in that.
Frank Brennan comes in just to chide me and give me a reminder. Remember, Tony, it's only ever exciting when you win. That's very true, Frank, but following Celtic is just an exciting occupation altogether. Sons of Scotland 67 says, can't wait for the club to put out pics with Maeda in the hoops. The wee man looks like another big Ange gem. Well, time will tell on that. And Daniel Hughes comes back in and says, seeing that Celtic are still in discussion with Kawasaki from Tariff for Rio Hatate, a fee will be agreed hopefully in the coming days, and stop personal terms won't be a problem. Yeah, I mean, that triumvirate of Japanese players seems to be bubbling away nicely, Sean, and it looks pretty positive that Hatate and possibly Ideguchi will come in as well.
It certainly does look positive. I mean, if you on the site today, I've kind of went through the kind of state of play before the window opens, and then a couple of hypothetical questions, and one of them was looking at these 3 players and where they would fit in, and whether they would add quality to the depth pool that I keep going on about. So because I've got a depth chart in my mind with that, I kind of looked at it, and it also links to what Frank has said in one of the other comments that I can't find just now, that other players need to leave as well, probably. That there are players probably surplus to requirements there, but the injury situation was such in the first half of the season that you would need players to come in before that would be the case, I would argue. And I would, I mean, we've said it before, I would also argue that if you've got even the same amount of players going out than you've got coming in, it's probably not good enough. You probably want more coming in than going out.
Correct.
But the three Japanese players, I mean, if they're recruited, then central midfield in particular starts to look a good bit stronger, because not only because Turnbull's out injured, but that is the place that you can't really get away with more than one injury, I would say, at a time. McGregor, Rogic and Turnbull are the main 3. Beaton has risen to the occasion really, really well. But beyond that, the jury's still out in McCarthy. Sorrell's still not really getting a game. Shaw's not getting a game. Henderson's not getting a game. So if the 2 Japanese players come in and they are pushing to get a game, that increases the overall quality in that area.
Yep. Ewan Boy Martin comes in. Hopefully we'll see 4 or 5 new players coming in next week. And Frank Brennan comes in. Sean, depth that chart, Martin. You know it, Frank. Sean's a man for your depth charts. He's good on that. It's bold, Sean.
Keep my clipboard on me at all times.
And Greenleg comes in. Wish we'd done a similar loan deal for Giakoumakis. now, Sean, that's a bit harsh on Giakoumakis. We will see the best of Giakoumakis at some point, I'm sure, as the season goes on. But I mean, it's I think just positivity emanating from the club at the minute, Sean. That's the thing, isn't it? You know, there's one trophy in the bag already. You know, that we're now on the winter break, and hopefully fans will be back in by the time it resumes. We'd like to think so, but you know, it's bubbling along nicely, as I say. That's the thing, isn't it, for the Celtic fans?
The only thing is the points gap at the top. That is the only thing just now, because everything else is pretty positive. Even the Europa League exit had numerous positives, and there's still obviously European football of some sort after Christmas. One trophy to compete for, one trophy's already in the bag, which is better than anybody else in the country at the moment. The points gap, it's almost it's a chain around your neck, but you can lift it off yourself at some point if you keep winning. That's the way that I look at it. And I mean, it's basically reiterating what we've said already, but absolutely key to that for me is that Ange is backed in January, to the extent that the problems that he's faced this season so far don't become something that's terminal in the second half of the season.
Yes, of course. And you touched upon it here. It'll be interesting to see who departs the club, but I do believe we'll come out the January window even stronger, says Daniel Hughes. Now, my thoughts on departures would be Barkas, Bolingoli, and possibly Haggerty as well. That's kind of three for me who are at the top of the heading for the exit door. Could be wrong in that, Sean, but you'd have to think that they would be deemed surplus to requirements because they've only played bit parts so far.
I would agree with those three probably. Haggerty, it's an odd one with Haggerty because the depth for the central striker role's not great, especially with Jack Giamacchi's not really been fit. That's why I think maybe Maeda and Abada will also maybe double up as the backup strikers if Haggerty was to go. But I do agree. I think Barkas, I mean, he played the other day, but in general, I don't really see the need for essentially four keepers to be there. So if there's any suitors for Barkas, I think he would be gone. Bolingoli the same. There's already another three left backs ahead of him. Taylor, Scales and Montgomery. I think you can comfortably say all three of those players are ahead of him. So if there's a suitor for Bolingoli as well, I agree he should be going. The other thing I would say is that if the Japanese boys in the midfield, Hatate and Ideguchi, come in, is there a case to be made that the likes of Ewan Henderson should maybe go out on loan?
Yeah, that's a fair point.
I mean, is there ever going to be a spell where there's availability issues to the extent that there was in the first half of the season there for him to actually get in the team? So if he's not going to get in the team at that stage, is he going to get in with another two midfielders arriving? Probably not. So you'd as well maybe give him first team experience out somewhere. And
Daniel Hughes makes a good point as well here, Sean. Thoughts on Karamoko Dombele being ahead of schedule? Does he come back into contention?
He's certainly on the depth chart, I'll tell him that. Well, I'll just read it to you. Obviously, I said there about if Haggerty leaves, it's Kyogo and Giakoumakis are the main two strikers. But as I say, you can kind of play with the versatility of Maeda and Abada there if Maeda comes in, obviously. But you're talking six wingers, which I think is pretty well stocked. You've got Jota and Forrest, arguably the two first choices. You've got Maeda can play there, Johnston can play out wide left as well, and then you've got Abada and Dembele. So that's six wingers that can conceivably play there, plus two of those at least can play central if you need them. So actually it would look pretty positive to me if all are fit, which is obviously the key.
Now Frank Brennan has said that 6 points gap's the absolute maximum right now, Sean. And then he comes back in and he says, whatever else happens before the 2nd of February, we just simply can't go into the Glasgow Derby more than 6 points behind. End of. Frank's very much an ultimatum kind of guy. Very black and very white with Frank. Appreciate that. But yeah, I agree with that, to be fair as well. I don't think the gap is insurmountable.
No.
But it can't be allowed to stretch anymore.
There's been bigger gaps pulled back. That's the one thing I would say. Bigger gaps pulled back, including 10 years ago. But I agree in principle that you don't want to begin into that derby on the 2nd of February with the gap any larger, basically. I would agree with that. I'm going to put up a comment here from Kookaburra, which is basically that this is the underlying point about sending someone out on loan. That's why you could argue that you couldn't afford to put anybody out on loan like Henderson stuff at the end of the window there, because there wasn't that much depth in that area. If Hatate and Ideguchi come in, as I say, I think it would be a good idea to maybe get the likes of Henderson away out on loan, because it can be the making of some players. Sometimes somebody goes out on loan. You'd argue it probably happens more often than not, but somebody goes out on loan and they don't make an impact when they come back. But now and again, you get Callum McGregor or you get Ryan Christie, both of who went away on loan and come back and made their case and got in the team and weren't really out the team for that much after it. So,
CFC 67 was in Monty and Henderson should go out in January to get 20 games in the bank. Haggerty, Bolingoli, Soro and Barkas, Orban all need to be sold regardless of the fee. That's Fair enough. Don't disagree with that. Celtic have to continue to focus on their own house, as Anne said, and that one game at a time mentality. I think that's what he's doing, Daniel, very much so. And Michael Duffin comes in and says, "I'd like to see more of Scales." I think a lot of people are in that bracket as well, Michael. And Dom88 comes in and says, "I think we'll take maximum point easily from both derbies if we have all our players back." That's fair enough. And David Bradley comes in and says, "Need to start the second half of the season really well to put pressure on Rangers." I think that's a given, isn't it, Sean?
It is. It's every. Well, we've been saying it for ages now. Every game's a must win, but it is a must win, and not just because it's Celtic win. You need to win every game, that kind of thing. It is a reality of the situation that you're 6 points behind, so they are must win. And David's right; it's imperative that they start on a positive note. And if Rangers drop points, great. But as Daniel just said in his other comment there, it is about focusing on your own house first. If Celtic keep winning, then there is more chance that they'll catch up. And then there's the two derbies to come into consideration as well.
Well, on that positive note, I think we'll end the positive broadcast. I've been Tony Haggerty, that's been Sean Martin. We thank you for your time. We always try and read out as many comments as we can. I need one more from Frank. This is brilliant. Now that Tony has passed his fatness test, he really doesn't need to see any more Scales. Love it, Frank. Thanks very much. Nothing like a bit of self-deprecation. Love it as well. Guys, thanks a lot. We really do appreciate the contribution. Thanks to Rab McCune for subscribing as well. If you're watching on YouTube, remember to hit the subscribe button. And I'll be back tomorrow in Hogmanay. I think you're off, Sean?
I'm off, so have a good new year, guys.
Nice one. I thought you were going to go all DeCanio there and say, God, no year. So there we go. But I'll be back in Hogmanay tomorrow to wish you all a happy new year as well, alongside Alison McConnell, I believe. But thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Have a good day, and we'll speak to you later.
Cheers, guys.